On the security video, you can see the moment she steps into the wind. Reusable bags in one hand, phone in the other, hair pulled into a quick knot the way people do when there's still laundry to switch and a dog to walk. The timestamp is 6:12 p.m., a Tuesday in late November in Dayton, Ohio. The sky is already the color of old steel. A thin rain has just started. She glances up once as if measuring whether she can beat it to the car. She can't, but she tries anyway. Her name is Jenna Cole, 34. She teaches fourth grade at an elementary school a mile and a half from the grocery store. Her fiancé is Marcus Avery, 36, a contractor who knows how to fix most things except the small breaks that happen between people when the month runs too long and the money runs too short. At 5:42 p.m., she texted him a photo of two brands of bread and asked, "This one or the cheap one?" He replied with a thumbs up. They'd argued before she left, not about bread, but it's easier to talk about bread than about the real thing. A minute after 6:12 p.m., Jenna disappears from the camera's field of view. The rain thickens. The cart boy jogs out in a hooded sweatshirt to corral strays. A sedan idles, headlights fogged. The life of a parking lot, ordinary, indifferent, full of moments no one thinks to remember until they have to. Marcus tells the first story at 7:28 p.m. when he calls 911. He sounds calm in the way people do when they're walking a tightrope over something bottomless. "My fiancée went to River Valley Market," he says. "She was supposed to be back by 6:30. She's not answering her phone." The dispatcher asks when he last heard from her. "About 6, he says. "She sent a picture of bread." An officer swings by the house on Fairview, the one with the peeling porch rail that Marcus keeps promising to sand and repaint. The dog, a tan mutt named Pepper, barks with joy at the new person and then lies down with her chin between her paws like she's picked up on the air. The officer asks if Jenna has ever gone off without telling anyone. "No," Marcus says. "Never." He stands in the doorway like a person who doesn't want to be inside the house he's in. The officer notes the open tool bag on the kitchen table, pliers, a voltage tester, a tape measure, and the wet footprints drying slowly on the mat by the back door. At 8:03 p.m., Marcus drives to the grocery store. He circles the lot twice, then parks where the security camera can see his truck clearly, which is the kind of decision you make either because you're helpful or because you're thinking ahead. He walks the aisles once, calling her name softly, which is a useless thing to do in a place where strangers don't know your voice. He asks a cashier if anyone turned in a phone. He asks the manager if he can check the footage. The manager says the police have to request that. At 9:17 p.m., he goes home and calls Jenna's sister, Alyssa. She answers on the second ring and says the sentence people say when they don't yet believe themselves. "She's probably fine." She says it again, slower, like the second pass might make it true. Detective Olivia Reyes is on call that week. She's been a cop for 12 years and has learned that most disappearances are loud in the beginning and then die down when the person being missed comes back with an ordinary explanation. She listens to the first reports and tells the uniformed officers to get the store video in the morning. She notes the weather, the dark, the time, the bread picture. She notes Marcus's voice on the 911 recording. Steady, clipped, like someone choosing each word the way you choose nails for a particular job. Wednesday morning, the grocery store manager hands over the footage voluntarily. It shows Jenna entering at 5:37 p.m., buying bread, milk, fruit, and a rotisserie chicken with a loyalty card, and leaving at 6:12 p.m. There she is in the drizzle, pushing a cart to her Honda CR-V. She opens the hatch, loads the bags, and then, this is where Reyes leans closer. She pauses. Her head sways slightly like she's reacting to someone talking. The camera is too far to capture words. A dark pickup idles 2 rows over, lights on. It could be any truck, anywhere. It could be his. It could be no one's. By noon, Jenna's phone is still going straight to voicemail. The carrier responds to the exigent request. Last ping near the grocery parking lot at 6:16 p.m. Then dark. Reyes asked for license plate readers along the main road. A Honda CR-V matching Jenna's plate passes the camera at 6:19 p.m., heading away from home. At 6:24 p.m., the same plate passes another camera 2 miles farther, close to the river road. Reyes requests traffic camera stills. The driver's outline looks too broad to be Jenna's. When Reyes sits with Marcus that afternoon, he is tired in a way that looks borrowed from someone else. He keeps rubbing his thumb and forefinger together like he's rolling a small screw he can't afford to drop. He says he and Jenna argued about money, rent due, a holiday trip to her parents that he didn't want to take because work was slow. He says he went to the store lot at 8. He says he hasn't slept. "Can I look in your truck?" Reyes asks. He nods. The interior smells like sawdust and damp clothes. There's a stray grocery receipt on the floor from a week ago, a travel mug, 2 contractor garbage bags folded into neat squares. In the bed there's a cooler, a coil of extension cord, and a moving blanket. All of it is normal for a person who works with his hands. All of it could be normal for something else. Reyes keeps a list in her head. Innocent explanations, darker ones. When both lists are long, the work is patience. Neighbors on Fairview print flyers with Jenna's school photo. Calm eyes, a smile that tilts left. Pepper whines at the front door. Alyssa sits on the couch with a paper cup of coffee and doesn't drink it. A volunteer tacks a flyer to the bulletin board at the laundromat. A teenager posts on Instagram with 3 heart emojis and a candle. The city's worry machine hums to life. On Thursday morning, a city worker spots a grocery bag tangled in a branch along the river road. White plastic looped like a weak flag. Inside are 2 apples and a receipt time-stamped 6:11 p.m. with Jenna's loyalty number printed at the top. The worker calls it in and waits in the rain until a cruiser arrives. Rhea stands under an umbrella and feels the way the small facts edge closer to each other. She re-watches the grocery lot video with the tech who can pull more light from dark pixels than seems possible. They enhance, stabilize, measure. The idling pickup has a shallow dent in the rear quarter panel, a kind of crescent you get from a short post in a tight driveway if you cut it once and misjudge. Reyes's brain tosses up a match. Marcus's truck, parked curbside during her afternoon visit, had a scar just like that. She went to cars long enough in patrol that she trusts how damage makes patterns. At 2:40 p.m., she asked Marcus to come down to the station. He sits in interview 2, palms flat, eyes half-lidded. "Walk me through last night again," Reyes says, as if starting fresh might widen the path. He does. It's the same path. When she slides a still photo across the table, a grainy frame with 2 cars and rain, he leans forward out of reflex and then leans back like the image got hot. "I didn't see her," he says. "I wasn't there then." "Here's what I think," Reyes says, not accusing yet, just placing a shape on the table. "You went to the store earlier than you said, maybe to talk, maybe to keep talking. It got heated. That happens. She got in the car. You did too. You drove. She wanted out. You stopped near the river. Something happened that you didn't plan." He closes his eyes and keeps them closed long enough that she could leave and come back. "Marcus," she says low, "help me find her." He doesn't confess the whole thing that day. He does something more common. He confesses in pieces, as if he can only stand to hold one shard at a time. "I went to the store," he says finally. "I wanted to say I was sorry before she got home so it wouldn't get bigger. She put the bags in the car and saw me and said, 'Not now.' She got in to leave. I stood by the door and said, 'Just 2 minutes.'" His thumb and forefinger roll that imaginary screw again. "She started the car and I got in the passenger side, We were both talking too loud and not hearing each other. Then what? We drove. I didn't want to fight in the lot. He swallows. She took the river road. I said we should go home. She said she needed 5 minutes of quiet. She pulled over by the turnout. It was raining harder. He swallows again. She put it in park and turned toward me. I turned toward her. He stops. Reyes waits. We both reach for the gear at the same time, he says eventually. I don't know why. Stupid. It jerked. She grabbed the handle to steady herself and the door opened a crack, and then the light came on, and I reached across and she pulled back and she hit her head on the window frame. There was this sound like he winces. She said, ow. Then she said, Marcus, like that. And then she slumped a little. I said her name. I said it a lot. Did she breathe? I thought so. I thought so. He's crying now, but quietly, as if he's embarrassed by the human fact of it. I touched the back of her head, and my hand got warm. I panicked. I grabbed the napkins from the glove box. I held them there. I don't know how long. It felt like he opens his hands. I kept thinking I could fix it if I did the next right thing, but I didn't know what the next right thing was. Why didn't you call 911? He stares at a spot on the wall. The truest answer to that question is always smaller and uglier than the person wants it to be. Because I didn't want to be the person who did this, he says. I thought if I just got her help without anyone seeing me, it would be. He shakes his head. I wasn't thinking straight. What did you do? I drove. He flinches at the word. I drove with her. I told her I was sorry and that we were almost there. I don't even know where there was in my head. He lets out a sound that is almost a laugh and not at all a laugh. Reyes thinks about the way people in crisis will move toward what they know. A house, a job site, a friend's place, a storage unit. Where did you go, Marcus? He doesn't answer. Do you have any jobs without buildings? Unlocked places? He shakes his head. Do you rent a unit? He looks up fast and then down, which is as close to yes as some people know how to come. He nods once. By the river, the old Carmichael storage Reyes stands. We'll go together. At the unit, a manager fumbles keys with hands that don't feel like his. The hallway smells like dust and spilled motor oil. A thin line of water snakes along the concrete from a leak in the roof, the kind of flaw that multiplies by winter. Unit 42 has a fresh padlock. The manager cuts it under the fluorescent hum. The door rolls up with that rattling sigh. Inside, moving boxes, a spare fridge unplugged, a fishing pole, a tote of Christmas lights, a queen mattress against the wall, and a large contractor bin with its lid not quite seated. Reyes doesn't narrate this part in her head. She doesn't say the words she's thinking because the words have weight and meaning, and neither helps. She keeps her voice even. Marcus, she says, and he nods before she finishes the sentence, as if he's handing her something heavy he can't hold anymore. They clear the area, step outside, wait for the medical examiner. Rain shells against the storage doors like thrown rice, the small ceremony of weather that attends the worst days. Marcus sits on the curb with his hands on his knees, head down, like a man who misread every sign on a long road and knows there's no map that can fix it now. When they move Jenna with the care given to the people we love after the moment we can help them. Reyes looks at Marcus only once. He doesn't try to meet her eyes. He watches the ground because the ground has no opinion. It just receives. In the interview room again, the tape running, Marcus fills in more of the edges. He says he brought Jenna to the unit because he told himself he needed a minute to think, to stop shaking, to call someone who would know what to do. He says he sat on the cold floor with her hand in his and stared at the little spiderweb crack in the corner of the windshield that she'd been meaning to get fixed for months. He says he tried to lift her higher to help her breathe, like they taught in a first aid class once, gentle pressure on the wound. And then he understood, belatedly, fully, that she wasn't going to answer him, that the next right thing had been back there on the side of the road, and he'd driven past it at 40 miles an hour. He says he locked the unit because the world outside the door didn't deserve to see her like that, which is the kind of sentence that is both loving and wrong. He says he drove home too slowly, like slowness could undo a rush he'd already chosen. He says he put Pepper's dinner down and realized he'd used the wrong scoop and did the math again to give the dog the rest. He says that detail like it might save him from the weight of the others, but it doesn't. Reyes asks about the drive to the river road. He tells her where he pulled over, a turnout with a view of leafless trees and water the color of pewter, a place teenagers sometimes park to pretend the future will be different than it is. She sends a car. They find a faint crescent of drying blood on the inside of the passenger door, too faint for the rain to have erased entirely. They photograph it. They bag a napkin fossilized to a flake. They collect the broken plastic from a cheap phone case on the gravel, the kind you buy at a kiosk while you're waiting for them to fix your screen. The medical examiner confirms what Reyes already suspected: a blunt force injury to the right parietal area consistent with a focal impact. No defensive injuries, no signs of strangulation or prolonged assault. Blood alcohol 0.00, tox negative. The kind of wound a person can walk and talk on for a minute if the bleed is slow and inward. The kind where the window for saving is measured in small numbers and you miss it by smaller ones. It is the kind of autopsy report defense attorneys are careful with and prosecutors are careful with because it doesn't scream intent or erase it. It leaves room for human error and human fear and human terrible choices. The case never needs a courtroom scene to feel resolved. The law moves like the law moves: statements recorded, charges filed, paperwork whispered between offices that share walls and burdens. Jenna's family doesn't ask for theater. They ask for her name to be the last word people say when they talk about what happened. They hold a candlelight vigil on the elementary school steps under a sky that finally remembers how to be clear. Her students, small and serious, draw pictures of a teacher who loved the read aloud corner and the way a good pencil feels at the start of a spelling test. Alyssa wears Jenna's scarf and tucks it into her coat like an extra lung. Reyes goes home that night and stands by her own sink and watches a small drip from the faucet insist itself into the basin. Tap, tap, tap. She thinks about how many stories hinge on 5 seconds of grace or 5 seconds of pride. She thinks about Marcus's line, "I didn't want to be the person who did this," and how often that line sits between a mistake and a crime. She thinks about how the brain in a panic will sprint toward familiar places: a garage, a storage unit, a lie. In the weeks that follow, the porch rail on Fairview gets sanded and repainted, not by Marcus, but by two of Jenna's coworkers and a neighbor who knows how to use a sander. They do it on a Saturday with a thermos of coffee and a bag of screws, because screws are always missing when you need them. Pepper watches from the window, tail thudding a slow metronome on the floor. They hang a small wooden sign under the mailbox that reads, in Jenna's handwriting from a copied note, "Do the next right thing, even if it's a small thing." People talk because people do. Some say that if Marcus had called 911 right there, right then, she might have lived. Others say maybe not, and neither answer brings her back. In the grocery store parking lot, cars move through rain and sun and boredom. The camera keeps watching a place that will never remember what it saw. Bread goes on sale. The cart boy graduates and leaves town. The rotisserie chicken counter smells like Sunday. Reyes doesn't keep souvenirs from cases, but she does keep notes. In this file, on a pink sticky that she finds stuck to the inside cover a month later, she wrote, 2 stories: the one he tells to stay the person he was, and the one that is. He held the first too long. The second waited in the unit until he could speak it. Detective handwriting, not poetry, but close enough for a day when things had edges that cut. Alyssa clears the storage unit with Reyes present. She takes the Christmas lights and the fishing pole and the box of college t-shirts Jenna never threw out. She leaves the queen mattress leaning against the wall and whispers, "Not that," even though the mattress never touched the worst moment. Grief makes rules that look strange to anyone not enrolled in its class. On a Sunday morning in spring, the elementary school plants a tree in Jenna's honor. It's a sugar maple, chosen because the custodian said sugar maples do well here, and because kids like the hands of the leaves. A boy in a Spider-Man hoodie asks if trees can remember people. The principal says trees are good at two things: giving shade and staying. The boy nods like that's an answer. Marcus writes a letter he is not allowed to send and gives it to his lawyer to give to Alyssa if and when. In it, he says all the words you hope he would say. "I am sorry. I was wrong not to call. I loved her. I was afraid of a version of myself that was already standing there." He includes a list of small, ordinary things Jenna liked that no one asked for. The corner piece of lasagna, the sound of a baseball game on low in summer, the first 5 minutes after you vacuum a room when the carpet still shows your progress like a map. He thinks these details might make her look more like herself in the world's eyes, but the world knew her already. It was him who didn't understand, until too late, how people become the sum of those small things, and how easily a person can sever their own claim to them. If there's a lesson at the end of this, Reyes hates lessons, but people ask, it's not the one about anger or even the one about money. It is the smaller one about timing and fear. That the line between a tragedy and a crime can be the 60 seconds in which a person chooses to hide instead of ask for help. That the next right thing is almost always the simplest and almost never the easiest. That the universe does not care which bread you choose, but the people in your kitchen do. At 6:12 p.m. on another Tuesday, months later, the grocery store camera records a woman looking up at the sky and trotting her cart through a light rain. It records a man stepping in to steady the cart when one wheel catches. It records two people laughing at nothing. It records a life that keeps happening off-screen, the way lives do. Somewhere else, on a street with a freshly painted porch rail, a dog barks at a mail carrier and then gives up and naps in the square of sun the door lets in. And a tree small enough to wrap two hands around tries, in the dumb, patient way trees do, to make shade for a place that still remembers the heat.